me is not being defensive, but also being open and loving, being more mindful. But the biggest thing that I also can offer is that you have to just kind of keep on decolonizing your own brain and keep on reading and surrounding yourself with educational materials, people's communities that are part of this kind of decolonial movement, with the ways of thinking and communicating and activism. And you're never really going to get to a point, none of us are really ever going to get to a point where we're completely decolonized in the way that we think and communicate. So I mean, I always acknowledge that, you know, when I hopefully die at the age of 90 or 100, I will never be 100% fully decolonized. It's just kind of, I think, in my opinion, it's kind of this remnant of being somebody who was born and raised in a society like America. That's kind of everything that we've been taught is based on these like colonialist assumptions, these white supremacist ideologies, and how to kind of, you know, take that away from your brain and try to figure out different ways of being. It's really challenging and hard. It's not impossible, but just remind yourself that it's never going to be 100% perfect. And just to kind of keep on opening and reading more and surrounding yourself with communities that will support you in that transformation.
So I have another question. That is, so you're suggesting that PETA, what's problematic about that organization is it's assuming consumerism. Could you talk about, do you have any ideas for alternatives to consumerism?
Oh yeah, well, remember this is more my opinion and less kind of research, but I know one of them is to really ask myself, what do I really need? And a lot of times, people think they actually need something to survive, you know, and is there a way that I can kind of decolonize my desires? So, you know, for instance, a lot of people I knew who are vegan, what really got them to stop consuming animals and animal products was really understanding that why would I want to advocate suffering of animal by consuming these things, right, these products. And you know, now that I don't have it in my diet anymore, I realize, wow, I never needed it to survive. I never needed it to be happy. So when I talk to, and it's not, by the way, it's not just vegan products, it's everything. Like, you know, the tablet I'm using, a lot of the Apple products that we use, you know, a lot of that comes from human exploitation. So for me, I'm still trying to figure this out because I'm trying to decolonize my brain around the fact that I've been born and raised in a consumer capitalist culture, and how do I think outside of that? How do I think outside of that and not be fearful that I'm not going to have access to what I think I need to survive? So I know it might be little, but I'm just starting off with little things. Like, I don't need to buy all these packaged items to survive. You know, and this is just my personal vantage point because I do live in Berkeley. I'm a lower middle class person, but I don't need to buy chocolate. Like, why do I need that? I don't need to consume all of these things that I think I need to consume. You know, I don't need to buy a sugar product if I don't know where the sugar came from. A lot of times, at least in the Berkeley area, people are getting away from the more processed and packaged things and just buying things from scratch or bulk. And I know for many that's a privileged response, I'm sorry, because I'm trying to figure this out too. A lot of people are just growing their own food and accepting that, you know, I'm not going to always need to purchase those packaged items. A lot of people are growing food in community gardens, which I know is hard because you need land. So land access is a very privileged thing to have. So a lot of the communities in like, you know, Oakland, where I'm next to, there's a lot of co-op gardening. There's just ways to teach people, this is how we grow it. Now this is what we do with the food that we grow, and this is how it's nutritionally beneficial. You know, let's stop being consumers and more producers. So that's just like one very small answer to your question. And another thing is, like I said, just like step back and really ask yourself, why do I need this? Do I need this to survive? And then if you really think that you do, I always ask people to remind themselves, you know, what did people say back in the day during antebellum slavery, you know? Mostly white people who were like, we can never survive unless we have black slaves to produce all these things that we need to consume, you know? And now it's kind of unheard of in America. Like, why? Of course, that's illogical. I can't believe there's a time where everyone actually thought that society would fall apart if white people stopped consuming all of the products that have been, you know, produced through the exploitation of black people. So I guess I just kind of leave that as an idea that, yeah, society didn't fall apart, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of the products that people used back then, the laborers have been, I guess, sourced from different parts of the world, new forms of slavery. But I guess to answer your question, you just have to step back and ask yourself, what do I really need? Like, what do I really need? And is it worth someone suffering or an animal suffering? And then there's a lot of, if you just go online, there's like a lot of underground networks that actually talk about ways to kind of think outside of the consumerist thing. And there's a lot of people also who are just kind of, you know, it's harder when you have families, but I know single people, younger single people, it's easier to start living in co-op situations and just starting to make your own things, you know, and secondhand things. Trying to buy, not buy, sorry, I'm not supposed to buy, but if you have to buy to go to thrift shops, you know, do you always have to buy something new? Free cycle, I love free cycle. I'm always seeing what I can get for free. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling on here, but it's exciting stuff to deal with. It's just a lot of answers that I'm trying to figure out.
Hi, Grace.
Hello.
So I just have more of a concern, something I'm thinking about, something I wonder if you could speak to and talk about your experience of. I feel that within the vegan movement, vegan backlash is somewhat in full swing. There's articles about quinoa and how these vegans who buy quinoa are destroying the world, about how Hershey's cocoa is destroying the world, and these are valid things and things that I find important and has made changes in my lifestyle to not include or at least not buy from these companies. And I feel as a part of that, I'm seeing all these trendy hip vegans starting to become trendy hip farmers. And they're, or at least they call themselves farmers, but they're buying a lot of stuff. They're buying a lot of genetically engineered chickens, and it's, I don't know, I just get irritated by it. And I imagine you might see this, have some of the same experiences or see some similar trends. And I'm just wondering what you think about kind of the, let's jump off the vegan bandwagon and jump on this sustainable local food bandwagon until there's another bandwagon that we keep jumping to and from. So if you would just share on your thoughts on that topic, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great.
I don't know much about the latter, but I can focus more on, for instance, the talk around quinoa. And I noticed that as well, that there seems to be this focus that it's like the vegans that are destroying the livelihood of, you know, Bolivian farmers who are trying to, you know, sustain themselves, but they can't because those vegans are just over-consuming quinoa. Well, whenever I read anything, I always think, okay, what's the source? You know, who is it benefiting? What other real, more pending problems is it trying to obscure? And I was thinking, yeah, vegans make up a really tiny percentage of the population. And, you know, someone had sent me an article that was a rebuttal toward, I guess, this article that's going around about how, you know, quinoa is being overconsumed by vegans and it's horrible. And saying that, well, actually, this is inaccurate. You know, a lot of the quinoa that's being consumed is not necessarily by vegans, but it's actually a significant number of omnivores and omnivore foodies who are just like, this is really trendy, this is the newest thing. So I was actually curious about why was the focus only really on vegans. And I'm just thinking in general, it's probably because we live in a culture that's specious, and if possible, whenever it is possible to report on how, you know, those ethical vegans aren't actually ethical, then the mainstream media kind of jumps onto that. And I actually find that really interesting. And I don't know if you guys remember, was it maybe 10 years ago, several people had gotten sick or died from eating spinach. I think it was even organic spinach because of the bacteria in it. And I'm like, you know, let's see, look, it doesn't just because you're eating spinach and you're a vegan doesn't mean it's healthy, you know? but no one really focused on that it was because of animal manure, the runoff that actually infected the